Hi, and welcome to this demo. My name is Duncan Epping, and today I'm going to be showing you how to configure a stretch cluster using vSAN 7.0. As you can see, we already have a cluster created, and we have a couple of hosts within that cluster. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to enable vSAN, and I'm going to enable vSAN stretch clustering in specific. So I'm clicking on vSAN services, and then I'm going to click configure, and then next I will need to select what type of cluster I'll be creating. In this particular case, as I mentioned, we'll be creating a stretch cluster. So I'll select stretch cluster and click next. Then what I'm going to do, because this is an all-flash cluster, I'm also going to enable deduplication and compression. So I select the deduplication and compression option and click next. Now what I will need to do is I will need to select the devices that will be part of this vSAN cluster. They were already pre-configured for me, so I don't need to select them individually. The next thing is I will need to decide which hosts will be part of which site. So I've selected those hosts, and then next what I will need to do is I will select my witness host. I've selected the witness host, and this host sits outside of the cluster. So as such, I will also need to select the caching tier and the capacity tier for the witness host itself in specific. So after selecting that and clicking next, you can now all of a sudden see these tasks spawning up. And what is going to happen in the background now is that this stretch cluster is going to be formed. So we'll be creating the local disk groups where we will be capable of storing those vSAN components on. And of course, we'll be creating the vSAN data store as well. After that has finished, the vSAN information will pop up in the vSAN pane where it now says vSAN is turned off. All of the information will start popping up in this particular view. As you can see, the information has just popped up. So what we're going to do next is we'll actually be creating a policy that will start leveraging the interface. Before we will do so, I will actually show you that these fault domains or this stretch cluster has actually been created. As you can see, we have two locations, a preferred location and a secondary location, and the witness host is also specified in this particular section of the UI. So now we're going to create this policy. So we're going to click menu, then we're going to go down to policies and profiles, and then we'll select the VM storage policies. When we're in the VM storage policies interface, we can create a new policy. And what we'll be creating is a stretch policy, but we'll be creating a stretch policy where we will have stretching across locations and RAID 1 within the location, and then next we will also do one for RAID 5 within the location, because you can create multiple policies for the different VMs you may have available. So we'll select this dual site mirroring, which is a RAID 1 configuration across locations, and then we'll have a RAID 1 configuration within the location as well. As you can see, the vSAN data store is compatible with it, and now we've just created our first policy. So now now we're going to create the second policy. The second policy, as already mentioned, is going to be a stretch configuration and a RAID 5 configuration within the location. We'll select the vSAN storage rules, and then we'll change the site disaster tolerance to dual site mirroring. So this is the RAID 1 configuration across locations, and then within the location itself, we'll be able to tolerate failures as well, and we'll have a RAID 5 configuration. So I'm going to do next, finish, and then we have two full policies configured. Now, the next thing, of course, that I can do is I can create a virtual machine, and I can assign a policy to that virtual machine. So that is what we'll be doing next. So I'm going to right-click the vSAN cluster and create a virtual machine. I'm going to deploy the virtual machine using an OVA. So I like to use the Photon OVA because it's a pretty slim virtual machine, and it's pretty fast to provision as well. So select the OVA. I need to provide a name, of course, which is going to be Photon-01. And then I will need to select a compute resource. I haven't enabled DRS yet, so I'll need to select the server that I would like to provision it to manually. So I selected the first server. And then next, what I will need to be doing, and I think this is the most important step, is I will need to select the storage profile that needs to be associated with this virtual machine. There are different policies that I have available, but I'm going to be selecting the stretched plus RAID 5 policy, which means that this virtual machine will be stretched across locations using RAID 1, and within the location it's also protected using RAID 5. So I'm going to be clicking next, next, finish, and then of course the virtual machine is going to be provisioned. Now this takes a couple of minutes because it will need to download the Photon OVA from the internet. So after it has completed, what you will see is that I will be able to power on the virtual machine. And as I said, this virtual machine is stretched across locations. And when I say stretched across locations, the storage part is stretched across locations, of course, not the compute part, meaning that the storage components that are stored on top of vSAN are available in both locations by leveraging RAID 1 across locations and, of course, leveraging RAID 5 within the location itself. And with that, we reached the end of the demo. Hopefully it was useful, and hopefully I've been able to show you how easy it is to configure a stretch cluster using vSAN 7.0. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.